Hey everyone, welcome to Food Talk Live. A reminder that this episode will also appear on Food Tank's podcast, Food Talk with Dani Nierenberg, so subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Today I get to talk to Caesaré Assad, the CEO of Food System 6. She has 20 plus years of experience as a cook, chef, entrepreneur, and business executive. She's developed culinary nutrition and wellness initiatives for lots of different kinds of clients, including Whole Foods Market, Tesla, and Cliff Bar. And at Food System 6, she is using her own experience in the food system and all those different roles and as an entrepreneur to help other food entrepreneurs and businesses. Thank you so much for joining us. I know this is a really chaotic time and you've had some health issues and some folks in your family who aren't as healthy as they could be. So I really, really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Dani and the team, for having me. It's an honor to share what we're learning on behalf of entrepreneurs, farmers, producers, and to be able to just share out what's going on. Like everyone else, we're in it, and so it's great to have this opportunity just to talk about and bring people together more to face some of the opportunities we have here with the food system.
Agreed. Because we can't meet in person, this is really the next best thing. So thanks again. So can you just give us like your 30-second elevator pitch of what Food System 6 does and who it is?
Sure, absolutely. FS6, we are a small team, a lean nonprofit. We are a nonprofit accelerator. We work with entrepreneurs who are focused on healthy people, sustainable ecosystems, vibrant farms, and justice and fairness. We typically operate our programs out of the Bay Area, but we serve companies globally. And our North Star is to build the sixth food system. We'll talk quite a bit about that today. We define this system as one that moves away from the extractive practices of our current industrial model and favors one that provides sustenance and health for all. In addition, we use our learnings to help inform and influence with capital to deploy in support of building this new system.
Awesome. That's a great description. I know we'll get into it a little bit more later. You have this incredibly unique perspective of playing many roles in the food system throughout your life, working in restaurants, now helping entrepreneurs during this crisis. You know better than almost anyone what food and service workers are going through at this time. Can you sort of give your perspective on ways we could be helping them?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for bringing it up. I mean, you've talking with Saru and a lot of other folks who are really on the front lines of supporting service workers. This is, all of us, we think of, service work. Those of us who've worked in the industry, I've worked in it for my entire life. My colleagues at FS6, Perry and Melissa, have worked in the service industry for their entire lives. This is our family. And, folks are really struggling right now. Unfortunately, it's not news that this is going to dramatically affect a whole class of people who are already overlooked. Service workers, farm workers, the invisible labor force, who tend to be some of the most unprotected, underrepresented groups in our country. They are being left out now. They've been left out of the stimulus package. We're seeing this, further stratification of society. You can see it in places like the Bay Area where it's really magnifying the difference between the haves and the have-nots. You mentioned, Whole Foods, there'll be a sick out tomorrow at Whole Foods. Amazon workers are protesting unsafe conditions. There's this sort of happening where we're seeing large corporations effectively mining us, human beings, for our health, for profit. And what we're seeing at Food System 6 is this massive effort, mobilization where local distributors, farmers, producers are picking up new hires. They're picking people up and paying dignified wages.
Right.
They're creating jobs that support the whole person. And they're really working hard to close the gap for farmers who need to reach eaters. So there's just these massive mobilization efforts happening. It's almost like watching Emergence, where it's just connection by connection, relationship by relationship.
Right.
People are, especially on the small farm shareholder side, are really reaching out, connecting to one another. And there's hundreds of use cases I could talk about and examples.
Yeah.
But
I hope, yeah, go ahead.
I would say, I know we'll get into those, but I mean, just in terms of, Milk Run up in Portland, they are tripling, quadrupling sales. They're really stepping up to support local farmers. They're hiring on chefs. They're really taking that entire market and figuring out what the need is and just making it happen. So similar to, what Catherine talked about from James Beard Foundation, this is, everyone in this industry is so creative and so willing and caring, that on the small business side and on the small farm side, it's a collective mobilization effort.
Yeah, I mean, we're in uncharted territory, right? And so that creativity that's coming about, that's inherent in entrepreneurs, is coming out, and inherent in farmers and others. So it's been really inspiring, right? Like when there's so much bleak stuff that we're hearing on the news, this is really where the action is happening. And if you could talk more about those examples and what you're seeing and those connections that are being made and why they're so important, that would be awesome. I just love sharing stories with our viewers, because it gives me hope. It gives them hope.
Yeah, I would love to. Well, there's, I think I'm from Oklahoma, so I'm always like very interested in things happening out of that part of the country. And, I'm in the Bay Area, so it's like I'm in this bubble, but really have to actively get out of this and go and see what's happening. And there's so much creativity coming out of the Midwest, the South, like all these places where I would say they've been marginalized, corporations, large companies have been extracting from there, and you see this creativity. So one solution I love is called Seed to Spoon. It's actually an app that was developed by a couple entrepreneurs, Dale and Carrie Spoonmore in Oklahoma City. It's a simple app that makes it really easy to grow your own garden.
Nice.
And I love the connection because Carrie actually is a nurse, and so she brings in this element of whole health, and it's a really kind of comprehensive tool for folks that my dad's already out starting his victory garden right in this small town. So I think that movement, it's a great way, and people can really get their hands in the soil, and it provides all of the things we need right now. In addition to being a tool to grow your own food, it's an ability to just take a minute, connect, and get back in touch with the soil, which connects all of us. So that's one cool solution. Out of Kansas, there's Central Grazing Company, which is a really amazing holistic ranching company. They're supporting the whole supply chain from food to fiber, which is really where we need to be moving to, looking at these, entrepreneurs who are willing to take a loss on their profits for 10 years to build a supply chain that has a humane scale of production, and that's actually contributing to building healthy soil. And then on the other side, they're producing incredibly nutrient dense meat that people can buy directly. And much of that is coming from very small producers in places like Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, that otherwise wouldn't have a market to sell these products to. So that's the kind of thing for folks that are like, where do I buy local meat? There are a lot of, Central Grazing Co., there are a lot of companies like this, and there are a lot of actual independent ranchers and farmers who have access to some of these small scale slaughter facilities who, like where I'm from in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, you can go out and you can buy a quarter cow, you can buy a half cow. These are the kinds of programs that people can start to participate in right now and today. And this is what is going to help these folks weather and also start to transfer their markets over, because what we've seen is just the market has kind of fallen out for a lot of folks. So they're really looking for new ways to get access, and direct sales to customers in some instances is going to make the difference for them. And so the places where some of the new technologies haven't really rolled out as well, we still have these old networks of mouth to mouth, who's got product available. And we're starting to see, I've been talking to some of my friends that were part of the 60s and 70s, movements, and we're starting to see people go back to those programs again.
Yeah.
Bulk buying, identifying these co-ops in their communities, or identifying, I know that Catherine talked about it as well, restaurants are turning into grocery stores, identifying the ones who actually have, source identified, that are working directly with farmers. And so these are the kind of individual call to actions of go and be creative, pick up the phone and talk to the people that are producing food. And a lot of these, especially rural communities that have effectively they've been commodified so much over the last 20, 30 years that process infrastructure, the ability to manufacture CPG products that come from small scale producers, much of that is gone. And so there is massive opportunity, and this is a whole other topic. We could talk about a lot of different things, but
sure.
There's massive opportunity to start identifying that infrastructure and start looking for unique ways to capitalize it. And so this is some of these other creative solutions that I'm mentioning. One of them is Farm Generations Co-op. This is something that's going to layer on top of these other efforts that we as individuals do to identify who's producing food. And then the more we kind of collectively align our resources and sharing, we can look to these cooperative models that are starting to build up. And I'll just talk quickly about Farm Gen Co-op.
Can I? Yes, please, because that one is so close to my heart. I love that project and I love the people behind it. So please talk about it.
Yes, I would love to. So Lindsay Lesser-Shute, she also founded the American Young Farmers Coalition.
National Young Farmers Coalition, sorry.
Yes, National Young Farmers Coalition. And so she's a farmer. She has been basically working directly with small scale farmers. And when we talk about small farms, we're talking about, the under 1% of farms that are actually farmed for food, for produce. And so basically she's developing a software solution, and this software solution is called Grown By, and it's actually owned by farmers. So in the typical software solution world, there's a solution that's built. There's a lot of solutions for small scale farmers, but the problem currently is that that solution is going to cost a farmer 20% of their margin to use it. And that's just, there's not 20% on that kind of a margin. So this solution is actually a direct sales platform. It's going to enable farmers to directly sell to customers. And then it will, as data continues to build, ultimately enable folks who are using this system to transact and compete against some of the larger market distributors. It's a very minimal transaction fee, and that transaction fee goes just back into running the software solution.
Right.
So this, I kind of have called it the rise of the collective, but we're seeing more and more of these types of cooperative business structures, collective business models. Firebrand Bakery in Oakland, it's a totally different kind of company, but he's building, he's built a trust into the back end so that his employees, who are, marginalized food service workers, don't have to deal with the complexity of a profit sharing arrangement that can get stripped away from them. There's a trust that's held in perpetuity that holds profits and distributes those profits. So it's a new structure, and there's lots of these structures now. And this is really where we need to move to, is locking infrastructure up in community so that those assets can continue to generate wealth over the long term for the people who really depend on this infrastructure in order to build viable businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really revolutionary way of looking at things that empowers not just, companies and producers and farmers, but it also empowers the consumer in a way that they haven't been empowered before. Because like what you're talking about is more regionalized food systems and more local food systems, people really having more choice. I mean, we've been sort of confused thinking that grocery stores, there's all this choice when it's only a few companies who are selling in most major grocery stores. So it gives consumers more choice. It allows them during a time of crisis not to panic buy if they know who the farmers that they can go to are, or if they know the companies and the bakeries and the other, the other infrastructure that's already there and built in that you're describing. It's such an empowerment tool. And I think that's, again, revolutionary.
Yeah, and I think, as you know, and as the current needs now are not materially different than those that existed before COVID.
Right.
We've been at Food System 6. This is just what we've been working on, seeing a lot of other folks have been working on this for decades now. And we all agree that urgency to deploy resources now is a great opportunity to expedite the shift to a decommoditized and regionalized food system. We are at the point, and these pieces are in place. The forces are there. The entrepreneurs, I mentioned Central Grazing Co., Revel Meats in Portland, Keller Crafted in Sacramento. These are small entrepreneurs who are pushing on and actually forcing the infrastructure to change. And these kinds of entrepreneurs are working all over the country. And I think we get confused sometimes and think of entrepreneurs as just, startup technologists, which they are. Some of them are, and those are great and much needed. We need everyone. But many of them are just farmers. And that's really the story of America. It's been built on entrepreneurial farmers and producers. And that is so much of our opportunity, is that this is about our culture. This is about our society as a whole. And, we have this really beautiful, rich, diverse country where we can produce and we can create so much wealth for all of us. And it's now about zooming in and resourcing these gaps that we know exist.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really like what you're saying. I mean, this is a real opportunity to combine, farmers' knowledge, farmers' traditional knowledge, the community knowledge that has been, part of rural America, with some of these high technologies like apps and, different ways of using artificial intelligence, all of these things. We have real opportunities here. And because of the urgency, not just of COVID-19, but because of climate change and, poverty and all of the other issues we face, the time is really now to take advantage of these things.
It is. And, I can add to that they're sort of on the message of hope and what's actually happening. We've had top technologists, from around the world reaching out and saying, how do we help? What do we do? I understand information infrastructure. I understand how to build some of the top technology tools. I work with AI. How do we put these tools and resources to work on the side of sustainable agriculture? And that is happening. And it's absolutely, like, I actually have, chill bumps, because it creates this cognitive dissonance, right? When someone says, hey, I want to build robots for small scale farmers. And you're like, okay. And then we have a conversation and realize that the intention is real, and the actual need and the solution is going to be incredibly meaningful for someone who's trying to raise vegetables on 2 acres of land as an independent person. And if they can have a small robot that they can fix themselves, that can go out and weed those strawberries for them, that's actually a huge innovation. And so this is happening right now. And that is very promising and very exciting to see. And, even today, the next thing I'll work on is I'm working with Community Alliance of Family Farmers, that's CAF, out here in Sonoma County, with Evan Wigg, just trying to write a grant to get support to provide technology assistance to small scale farmers. How do you use your cell phone? Right? Really, really bad. This is where we are today. We're like trying, we've got, folks who've been working on maybe new apps and solutions in agriculture who are going to put those projects on hold and then move their talents over to support these small farmers who really need to learn how to get up to speed on these technologies, because we have to embrace that in order to be competitive with what we see happening on the commoditization side.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And what I love about what Food System 6 does and what, like, who you personally are, is that you're using technology to solve for problems that actually need to be solved. It's not all this crazy, like, Silicon Valley, like, let's build it because we can. You're actually helping farmers solve problems that they have in the field every day, whether it's, how to use their cell phone, or, getting, their crops weeded, or, figuring out when major weather events are going to happen. These are problems that need to be solved. And I think, again, a crisis like this sort of points where the technology needs to go. Like, this is where we need things to happen. And so I'm so appreciative of the work that you do to make technology real and to make it actually, something that solves problems rather than creates them.
Thank you. I mean, it's really, we look a lot, we look so much at behavior change, right? I think everyone does this day and age.
Right.
And the reality is that incremental change, recognizing that we're not separate from nature, we're actually part of nature, and that we change in these very minute ways. And technology should be the same. Technology is a tool to enable us to be better humans, to be better society. And so reframing the technology is going to be some magic bullet, and actually recognizing that technology is something that we create, and the way that we create it and the way that we deploy it should be in service of our collective humanity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you were describing Food System 6 at the beginning of this conversation, you used this word that I truly love. Like, Food Tank uses the word nourishment a lot. We need things that nourish people. You use sustenance. And I feel like that means so many things to so many different peoples. It's like sustaining the soil. It's like creating real sustenance. Why use that word? Why is that word important to you?
That word's important because it means more than having our basic needs met. Sustenance to me is about actually bringing a wholeness and a collectivism, and it's a little bit more of an actual spiritual relationship with
Right.
how we, relate to the world. Sustenance is a wholeness, and it's about this idea that we can, once even we can get to a place where we have, getting to where we have our basic needs met is one thing. Getting to a place where we feel safe and we feel whole, and we feel spiritually connected, to me, that's what sustenance is about. And it's aspirational, and it's also very much where we need to go. And I think a lot of people really can relate to this feeling of needing both physical and spiritual wholeness, and that, again, this collectivism, this human connection that we have, is so much more than just food and nutrition. It's about how we feed ourselves in every aspect of our lives, and creating this world where every human being actually feels this sense of purpose and wholeness. That's what sustenance means to me.
Yeah, you're really cultivating community and health and wellness in such interesting ways. So, people are feeling very helpless right now. And we've been trying to give advice and you've been so hopeful, but what advice do you give your family, your colleagues, others about how to support food businesses right now? You mentioned things like CSAs and some of these companies, that are in the Midwest where I'm from. So I love that you're like touting the Midwest. But, what's one piece of advice you can give folks that will help them, get through today and this week that they could do to be helpful?
Well, first is take a deep breath.
Sure.
and the second is turn off the news. So I'll give 3 pieces of advice. Take a deep breath, turn off the news, unless Food Tank.
Thanks.
Honestly, I would suggest that people call their neighbors and ask where they're getting their food from, ask if they need food, and through this process, engage in a conversation with the people who live next door to you. I think right now, the best thing that we can do is talk to our neighbors, and talk to them about food and use food as the tool to build connection. Obviously practicing safety and doing all the things we need to do to maintain our physical distance, but embrace that we have this opportunity to build a more social and connected relationship within our direct community. I really believe that just by talking to a neighbor specifically about food is the start. And starting there is going to lead to what's next for you individually, but just beginning the conversation and recognizing that food is it's our cultural connector, and we can use this as a tool right now to build relationship with one another, and that is going to build into the fire that's going to flame this revolution to a better system.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no going back to where we were because it didn't make sense. So I think there's a lot of building those connections now during this crisis is going to help us build something much, much better later on. Where can people find more information about FS6?
So people can go to our website, foodsystem6.org, and just to say we are working around the clock. So for the question you asked, if you're a farmer, if you're a producer, if you're an investor, if you're an individual and you just have no idea where to start but you want to, just reach out to us. We have a contact form on our website. The three of us are working around the clock, and we are all about engaging with anybody who wants to reach out. We're collecting and aggregating resources. We have a needs have list. We'll be continuously producing landscape updates specifically around the producer and farmer needs, and then largely just looking for ways to connect people, engage. So we're here. We want to hear from people, and we want to continue to drive some connection and hopefulness around this next opportunity we have to build a better world together.
That's great. So again, foodsystem6.org. You're my new favorite person, Caesaré. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm in awe. I can't wait until we get to hang out in person soon. A reminder that this episode will also be aired on our podcast, Food Talk with Dani Nierenberg. You can find more information about Food System 6 there at foodtank.com. And thanks to all of our viewers. Please join us back here at 5 p.m. when I chat with Janique Jenkins of City Harvest in New York to talk about their efforts to feed the hungry in New York City at this very critical time. Thank you again, everyone, and please stay well.